Now, like so many of their press colleagues, Axios is spreading doom and gloom about the Strait of Hormuz. What if mines are laid by Iran? What if Iran does have more ballistic missiles hidden away? Why report on the progress made toward decapitating Iran's nuclear program? Why report on the sinking of their Navy, obviously the big developments today, when you can hype worst-case scenarios? And I think my favorite is when the media quotes these tough guy pronouncements from the new Ayatollah as if he's some kind of vibrant political force holding press conferences. I mean, they're saying Iran's new supreme leader vows to keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Vows? Really? How is he vowing exactly? From his hospital bed with an amputated leg and a messed up face?
We know the new so-called not-so-supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured. He put out a statement yesterday, a weak one, actually, but there was no voice and there was no video. Iran has plenty of cameras and plenty of voice recorders. Why a written statement? I think you know why. His father, dead. He's scared, he's injured, he's on the run, and he lacks legitimacy.
Obviously, they would have put him out on camera if he were capable of speaking for himself. But, of course, the not-so-supreme leader is not capable of doing that. So all they have is regime propaganda and apparently a number of useful idiots here in the United States. So whatever is left of the regime needs the world to believe that it somehow outsmarted the American military. And, of course, our press and some of their Democrat allies are helping them sell that line 24/7. And so now we're supposed to believe that no one, I mean no one in the administration anticipated that, gee, maybe Iran would try to block the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, CNN began that drumbeat, and then The Atlantic and others repeated it. Astonishingly, President Trump and his aides were caught unprepared when Iran, under air assault from the United States and Israel, retaliated by targeting shipping in the Persian Gulf. It's all one giant media Democrat Party echo chamber.
Trump's rosy assessment of the conflict to this point seems in stark contrast with the reality we're seeing on the ground. There's reporting yesterday that the U.S. officials did not anticipate that Iran would try to close the Strait of Hormuz as part of a counterattack.
Now, where could they have gotten their bogus tips from? Maybe an angry senator from my home state of Connecticut? Well, Chris Murphy, of course, has been leading that charge, saying, well, he's classified briefing. I guess isn't classified? I don't believe Murphy farther than I can throw him. Now, Hegseth tossed a grenade on that theory earlier today.
More fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report.
But again, when you see the criticisms of our military planning, and look, they're never going to get everything 100% right, but they're going to come pretty darn close. Like, so objective reporting, no problem with that. We've got to learn from our mistakes. But when you're reading these ridiculous headlines, consider the sources. And by the way, the editors at National Review, they're not fans of Trump's. They dismiss the CNN report as nuts. Other stories are just as bad, though. Another piece in The Atlantic claims that U.S. capabilities are showing signs of rot. Okay, so when our forces, perhaps with other countries, secure the strait, will they issue a correction or even report on it fairly? Of course not. Now, as Donald Trump posted on Truth Social just moments ago, there's no losing this. He says we wiped out every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karj Island, but not the oil infrastructure. He said, if Iran screws around with the strait again, that's going to change. As long as Donald Trump is president, though, here's what you have to remember. The entire press establishment, the Democrat Party, they're going to remain invested in America's failure because their own political success depends on Iran turning into a disaster, and that is contemptible.
This is the most incompetent, incoherent war America has fought in the last 100 years. I have great sympathy for our soldiers and our military leaders. They are being given directions by a senile old man who is losing his mind. And so it's no surprise that this war is going horribly.
Wishful thinking from the senator from Connecticut. What a detestable comment from that gelatinous, girly man. It's only day 13, but Murphy, along with Schumer and the rest of the do-nothing Democrats, are clearly rooting for failure. They see nothing positive in the elimination of Iran's nuclear sites, in the sinking of their Navy, in the flattening of key missile depots. Is that not a good development for American and regional security? Does it not give the people of Iran a chance, maybe a small chance, but a chance for a better life? Well, of course this is all good. But instead of putting country first, hoping for success, they relish bad news. They never would admit this, but how many of them wake up in the morning hoping to read about another tanker in flames or another accident involving a military aircraft? Democrats seem to be saying that when Joe Biden left office, that U.S. policymakers had only two options. Number one, negotiate with Iran, even knowing that Iran would lie and keep building nukes and supporting terrorism. Or number two, we could try to put military pressure on Iran, but it would ultimately fail because Iran apparently can unilaterally bring Gulf traffic to a halt. Now, even if that were true, Trump still did the right thing. We're obviously better off trying to stop Iran and taking our chances on short-term economic disruption than we would have been simply waiting for them to have nuclear capability and then threaten all of us. I suspect Democrats are wrong once again. It is not true that a theocracy with no Navy and no Air Force can actually stop commerce in the Gulf beyond the short term. Let's remember, even before the war, Iran's GDP was about the size of Oregon's. So instead of offering a positive idea for American growth, American security, even if you disagree with President Trump, Democrats just keep hoping that other forces will bring down the Trump agenda. Remember, Trump's already been investigated, he's been indicted, he's been impeached, he's been shot at, and yet he's still here. And yet Democrats think that he's now going to be brought down to his knees by the Khamenei clan?